I've been looking for months and months and months for a mid-century set, and I finally came across one that just needed a little love and affection. We got the 2 nightstands, the long dresser, the tall boy, a mirror, and then a bed frame somewhere in the background. I bought this set on Facebook Marketplace. In today's video, we'll be doing the long dresser. In my previous video, we did the nightstands, and then in the next video, I'll be doing the tall boy. Let's do it. So I started off with scraping the top with my scraper. The finish came up quite easily, and with a little bit of pressure, away it went. You have to be careful if you're going to be scraping to keep it even, because I made a boo-boo on the top where I kind of tilted it one way and it kind of scraped the top, and then my heart sunk when I looked at it, and I'm like, ah. And I just had to keep pressing forward. There's nothing I can do beyond that point of repairing it. So I was just like, okay, well, let's try to not do that again. But other than that, after the scraping, we went into sanding. I went in with 120 grit paper. I thought this was a perfect grit to go in and do the whole top, going very slowly so we can avoid swirl marks, which happens when you move the sander way too fast or put too much pressure. The reason why I went in with 120 is so that the stain can penetrate very nicely. The higher grit you go, the less stain will penetrate. You know, looking back at this video, I'm like, wow, most of this video is just me sanding down this piece. But honestly, I found it very enjoyable. I think it's just because I have an appreciation for the way that furniture was made back in the 60s and 70s. I really like mid-century furniture. Maybe I'm just influenced by and also being inspired by others on YouTube. I love them restoring old furniture. It's just like, here I'm going in with mineral spirits. It looks like I accidentally poured a little bit too much, but I'm gonna go ahead and spread it all around the piece and go ahead and clean it. But also see if there's any finish left over from not getting it from sanding or scraping. Today we'll be using General Finishes oil-based gel stain and antique walnut, and here I'll be using an applicator just to put it on and then a rag to wipe it off. After you start rubbing off all the excess, it's quite difficult if you wait too long. I immediately after applying it, I started rubbing it off because it starts getting tacky and very hard to come off. And if you don't completely take off all the stain, the wood grain won't show through quite as fine. But it also just depends on the weather. Like the day I was working on this was in the morning. It was around 80 to 90 degrees, so it was quite hot. But of course, it'll be dependent on where you are in the world. Now it was time to do the legs. I just had minor scratches and I just went in with some gel stain and then wiped it off. It wasn't perfect, but I was happy with that. This is what the piece looks like, very dull and without a finish. Here's a close-up of all of it. After letting it sit for 24 hours, I came back the next day with some poly oil-based wipe-on. I forgot to press record when I was doing the top, but I got the rest of the piece, so that's okay. And this is also drying very quickly, so I'm trying to go ahead and wipe it on and then wipe it off and then go with the grain. After doing further research, I realized that the manufacturer, what they usually do is they use a quality piece of veneer on the top and the sides and on the drawer fronts, but usually on the paneling on the bottom and inside the drawer. They usually use a different type of wood. That's why the color is inconsistent, but it's not that big of a deal. It's kind of shows more in the sunlight than anything. This is gonna go in my room, and my room's quite dark, but now I know. And then I did all the legs, and then in the next 24 hours I did the top again and did the whole thing all over again and did it a total of 4 times with a light sanding in between. Now that this piece is done, let's go ahead and take a look on what it looked like before. And here it is, all finished. And here it is in my room. Thanks for watching. Stay flippy.